Welcome to our study of watching Jesus serve. In this study, all we're going to do is go back to the Gospels and take some time to watch Jesus do what he does best, which is serve other people. And in that process, we've seen him do three things. He's touched those who we might consider untouchable. He's corrected false and backwards ways of thinking. And he's leading us by example, even in 2021. And we've gone through several different stories of Jesus serving, some of them miraculous and others of them just showing supernatural kindness. But in these next two studies, we want to take some time to look at how people respond to Jesus' serving. And today, we're going to look at a positive response to Jesus serving people from John chapter 4. Now, when Jesus learned the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, although Jesus himself didn't baptize, but only his disciples, he left Judea, departed again for Galilee, and he had to pass through Samaria. So he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, so Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. It was about the 6th hour. A woman from Samaria came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink," for his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, as a woman of Samaria? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans." This story is really interesting for many reasons. And one of the main reasons this story is interesting is because Jesus decides to cut right through Samaria. And back in Jesus' time, you couldn't take the bus, you couldn't rent a car, you couldn't take a train, and a lot of times you didn't even ride on a horse or a donkey. Most of the places you went, you just walked. So Jesus was walking with his disciples through Samaria. And the Bible says it's about the 6th hour, and then on the Jewish clock at least, that would have been about 12 o'clock noon for us. So we can understand that. Imagine you've been traveling from morning until the afternoon, and it's the heat of the day, and naturally you want to sit down and you want to take a break because you're thirsty. And it's no accident the place that he stops to take a break, because this is Jacob's well. It has a lot of historical and religious value to the Jews back then. And who he meets there is very interesting as well. He meets this woman of Samaria, interestingly drawing her water in the heat of the day, which is something that they normally didn't do. And we see here that Jesus is going to connect with her on a human level because he's been traveling, and so he's tired and hot, and she probably came from wherever she was, so she's probably tired and hot, so she might have been taking a drink for herself, not just the water for her household for that day. So Jesus relates to her on a human level and says, "Hey, I'm thirsty. Can you give me a drink?" And this one simple question strikes the woman off guard. And we don't know if she was sarcastic or sincerely intrigued or guarded, but this would have been surprising because, number one, he was a Jew and she was a Samaritan. And as John tells us, they didn't really have dealings with each other. Number two, he was a man by himself and she was a woman by herself. And that alone would have been scandalous back in their time. There would have been implications about the two of them, and he wasn't afraid to engage her in conversation. When he saw someone, he was going to take an opportunity to connect with them as a human being. And so he connects with them on the topic of, hey, we all got to drink water. But that's not where the conversation is going to stop. He's not okay with just on a surface level, can I get a drink? He's going to take it deeper. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that's saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw water with, and the well is deep. Where do you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob? He gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock." Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water I will give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water, so I may not be thirsty or have to come here to draw water." One thing you really have to admire about Jesus was that he was not bashful with people. He launches straight into a theological conversation with this woman. And so he talks about living water, and he says, this well will only suffice for the physical, but what I can provide you is going to suffice for the spiritual and the long term. And now we have a full-blown dialogue because this woman's not just going to ask little bitty questions. She's going to fully engage in this theological conversation with Jesus. And so she's going to switch gears from the water to Jacob, what they kind of had in common, because both Samaritans and Jews had their common ancestors in common. So she's going to bring up that. Are you saying that you're greater than our father Jacob? He built this well. Without him, we wouldn't have this kind of land. Who do you think you are? But this is great for Jesus, because now the woman's not just surprised, what are you doing talking to me? But now the woman is fully engaged. Jesus has gotten her from the point of complete stranger to now we're kind of passing back and forth some theology. But again, Jesus is not going to leave it at the physical or the theological. He's going to even take it a step further into her personal life. And Jesus said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You're right in saying I have no husband, for you've had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you said is true." The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you're a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship." Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you don't know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father is seeking such people to worship him. God is spirit. Those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth." The woman said to him, "I know that Messiah is coming, he who is called Christ. When he comes, he will tell us all things." Jesus said to her, "I who speak to you am he." Jesus skips the pleasantries, and he skips the getting to know you part of this relationship and goes straight for the jugular. And Jesus reveals a little bit about himself, knowing something about her that no one else could have known, her living situation and the struggles that she had with her past relationships and the situation she's in now, why she's alone drawing water. And I want to make sure we stop and kind of talk about this for a moment, because it seems like a lot of times when we talk about Jesus' healings or his miraculous knowledge of people, him knowing their hearts, there's often a disconnect between us and Jesus, because we're supposed to be like Jesus, but situations like this come up and we think, well, there's no way I can know someone's backstory, right? There's no way I can know what someone's been through specifically like Jesus did, and that's true. But you wouldn't have to been the Son of God to know that there were some problems in this woman's life. Number one, she was by herself in the middle of the day drawing water. Jewish women, people back in this time, they went to draw water at the beginning of the day, because if the well was far away from your house, you didn't want to take a bunch of trips to go get water. So at the beginning of the day, around 6 o'clock in the morning, you would go while it's still cool, draw water, bring it back to your house, and that was the water you were going to use for the rest of the day. This woman seems to be going at a later time to avoid other people, or maybe she was shunned. Probably also the way she carried herself, maybe even the way that she looked, what she was wearing. All these things could have tipped Jesus's interest and helped him understand there's something different about this lady. And the same is true for you and me. I don't have to have miraculous superpowers or supernatural knowledge to know that someone's been through some rough stuff, like the way they carry themselves or the way they talk to people or any of those things. I can tell from the way someone looks or acts, they've been through some stuff, and there's ways for us to have that conversation with them. It could be as simple as, "Tell me about your life. What are some things that you've been through?" And so understandably, this woman is uncomfortable with this conversation because that's deeply personal to her. So she turns the conversation from her personal life back to theology. She talks about mountains, and she talks about the Messiah and how he'll make things all good and how he'll help them understand all these things better. And in talking to her, Jesus reveals a lot of things about himself. He tells her that one day there will be a living water that will always sustain her. So she won't always have to come and draw water from this well. It's an inconvenience to her. One day it won't matter what mountain you're worshiping God on, not Gerizim or not the one down in Jerusalem. One day mountains won't matter. Instead, the qualification is sincerity, worshiping God in spirit and in truth. And lastly, she says, well, I'm looking for Messiah. Hopefully he'll clear out all this mess about traditions and mountains and all these things. I'm waiting for Messiah. And then Jesus drops the bomb and says, I'm the one. And at first the woman was intrigued. She was taken aback. Why are you talking to me? What's going on here? And then she was engaged in theology. What do you mean by these things? What's happening here? But then, now that Jesus dropped this bomb, she is amazed. I can't believe I've been talking to the Messiah this whole time and had no idea. And think about this. Jesus could have walked right into the town. That's where his disciples went. Disciples went to go get some food. Jesus could have gone with them. But instead, he decides to take a detour in Jacob's well to meet this lady. And after this encounter, we see how people responded to Jesus' act of kindness here. Just then his disciples came back. They marveled that he was talking with a woman, but no one said, "What do you seek?" or "Why are you talking with her?" So the woman left her water jar and went away into town and said to all the people, "Come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Can this be the Christ?" They went out of the town and were coming to him. Many Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. "He told me all I ever did." So when the Samaritans came to him, they asked him to stay with them, and he stayed there 2 days. And many more believed because of his word. They said to the woman, "It's no longer because of what you said that we believe, for we have heard for ourselves, and we know that this is indeed the Savior of the world." Jesus' kindness caused this lady to drop what she was doing, literally, run to the town unashamedly, and tell people about what she just experienced. And she says, "This man told me everything that I've ever done." And people in the town would have known everything she would have ever done. It would have been public knowledge. So people were curious. What are you talking about? Are you crazy? Could this be the Messiah? And so they all go out and rush to see Jesus. And in the end, Jesus actually makes this woman the hero of the day, because the people look at her and say, "Thank you for what you've done. You went and told us and we didn't really believe you, but now we know for a fact this is the Son of God." This whole encounter started with Jesus taking action. He thought, as the disciples thought, we could go around Samaria. That's what we typically do. Instead, I want to kind of work against that. I want to go right through Samaria. He took action. He could have sat at the well and ignored the woman. He could have gone into town with his disciples, never had that encounter. But instead, he takes action and says, I want this to be different. I want to have this encounter that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise. We have that same ability. We don't have to have supernatural powers to take action in our lives. We're with folks every single day, and we're with people who we might not want to talk to every single day. And we're with people who might not have the same kind of lives that we do every single day. We need to be like Jesus, take action, and start having conversations as simple as, "I'm thirsty. Are you thirsty?" This often intimidates us because we think, like Jesus, we need to hop right into a theological conversation. Well, do you believe Jesus is the Son of God? He's the Christ? Do you know what that means? Are you ready to be baptized? What's your previous religious experience? All these things. We need to kind of slow down and think more basic. On a human level, what connects us with everybody else? Well, a few things come to mind. We all have to eat. We all have to drink. We all have to rest. We all need a place to live. We all have to live here on earth. All these things we have in common. With Jesus and this woman, there could have been a million things that separated them. He was man, she was woman, he was a rabbi, she was whatever her community decided that she was, but he found what connected them. Again, we don't have to be supernatural to do that. There are plenty of things that connect us, probably more than divide us. Lastly, Jesus shows us that we need perspective. The only people who had a problem with Jesus serving in the story were the disciples. They came back and saw Jesus talking with a woman and they were concerned. Did she try to make a move on him? What happened? Is he hungry? Is he delirious? Is it too hot? Have you eaten anything? And Jesus has to really reprimand them. This is what I came here to do. This is who I came to seek and serve. And we can learn a very valuable lesson from that, because sometimes when we evangelize and we're trying to reach out to people, we want to find people who act like me. I want to find someone who looks like me and someone I'm comfortable with and automatically click with. And that's not always who we're going to find. And sometimes if we're not careful, we end up ostracizing the people that we should be trying to reach. So if we're going to be like Jesus, we need to be ready to have uncomfortable conversations, but real, authentic conversations that lead somewhere. And we also need to be ready to be inviting people into the kingdom who are not like us, but who will gladly receive the gospel and be a part of God's kingdom. Hey, you're still here. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching our video. If you like what you saw, there's plenty more where that came from. Check out our YouTube channel and the various series and videos we've done, and let us know what you'd like to see further.